half of all creators struggled with burnout last year. Burnout is the biggest reason creators quit. And most solutions for burnout don't actually work because they're not rooted in real psychology and aren't targeted toward creators, which is where I come in. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Dr. Corey Wilks. I am a licensed clinical psychologist and executive coach, and I help the top creators and communities in the world reach their potential by building fulfilling lives and thriving businesses aligned with their values. And on this channel, I share these strategies and insights with you by doing deep dives into psychology, online business, and content creation. And today we're talking about all things burnout. How to avoid burnout, how to minimize burnout, how to recover from burnout, and how to return to work after burnout. Let's get started. So before you can learn to deal with burnout, you have to understand your susceptibility to it. And the easiest way I can describe this is kind of think about it like a battery. So maybe you have like a normal sized battery. So then every day when you wake up, your battery hopefully is fully charged. So it is easier for you to deal with certain things that can cause burnout. But maybe you have a regular sized battery, but because you didn't get enough sleep, you've been super stressed either from work or life or other situations, or maybe you haven't been eating right, exercising. There's tons of things that can deplete your battery. So now, even though you have a normal sized battery to begin with, when you wake up, your battery isn't fully charged, which means you are more susceptible or less resilient toward burnout. So you're more likely to burn out faster. But maybe your battery is actually smaller to begin with. So even fully charged, it's going to deplete a lot faster because you just don't have the same capacity for dealing with it. That's my situation. So like anytime I've ever had a regular job, I burn out super quick because anytime I feel that the work I'm doing doesn't matter, or I'm not being respected, or I'm not allowed to give the value that I know I'm capable of giving, I immediately start to burn out and I check out and eventually quit. So this is why it's super important to understand your default capacity for burnout. So just doing basic things like taking care of your sleep, diet, exercise, stress management, those will go a long way, but also learning to not compare yourself to other people. Because if my burnout battery is super small and I'm super prone to burning out, then comparing myself to somebody with a larger burnout battery, a larger capacity for dealing with things, isn't really fair and kind of sets me up for failure right out the gate. But assuming you're not making these basic mistakes that lead to faster burnout, then we can move on to the next step, which is learning to anticipate burnout before it happens. So learning to anticipate what drains your burnout battery and how much energy it drains is the simplest and first step to avoiding burnout altogether. Because it's easier to just remove what is draining your battery than to try to constantly recharge it. And here are 3 common sources that drain your burnout battery. The first source is the decisions and commitments you make. A huge cause of burnout is doing work that is unaligned with your values when it comes to your life and your business. Everything has an opportunity cost. Saying yes to one thing naturally means saying no to a dozen others. But learning to default to no frees you up to say yes to the few things that truly matter. So anytime you have an idea or an opportunity, ask yourself, do I want the successful version of this? Because most of the time, something that looks like a short-term win is actually a long-term loss. Because a lot of the time, the long-term consequences of a decision outweigh any short-term benefits. So a common example of this is when it comes to like brand deals and sponsorships. A lot of creators early on say yes to any brand that will give them money. But eventually this becomes a source of burnout because they feel beholden to all these brands and a certain upload schedule and having to parrot words from the brand. So then they feel inauthentic or they feel trapped in a certain upload schedule. So even though this seemed like a win in the short term, it ended up causing burnout over the long term. Not all brand deals are worth accepting. Not all collaborations are worth committing to. And not all projects are worth your time, energy, and attention. It is super easy as creators to pursue too many projects, to try to be on too many platforms, to try to be everywhere all at once. Give yourself space to deeply consider where saying yes to this opportunity might lead. When in doubt, just default to no. Your peace of mind is worth more than whatever number they put on a check. Another super common source of burnout is our thoughts. Learning to recognize the psychological sources of burnout is critical. So things like our inability to disengage from work. Right? As a creator, everything's content. You're always thinking about how to turn an experience or an idea into some piece of content. An article, a post, a video, a course, something. You're always on. There's also an emotional toll to being a personal brand, to being niche famous. The pressure to post content on every single platform, constantly comparing yourself to other creators and feeling behind or like you're not doing enough. And there's also the struggle of feeling siloed, of feeling isolated. Right? As creators, we spend most of our time alone creating content for other people. So practicing what psychologists call metacognition, learning to observe your own thoughts and reactions, is critical to identifying and anticipating psychological sources of burnout. One way to practice metacognition is to build a habit of asking questions like, when I see my peer achieve this win, what thoughts fill my head? Do I feel shame that I haven't accomplished as much? Or am I purely happy for them, for their win? Or does seeing them win inspire me to do more? Another question is, how supported do I feel as a creator on a day-to-day basis? When was the last time I reached out to another creator friend to catch up? Another question is, how aligned are my personal life and public persona? Do I feel psychologically safe embracing my authenticity? Or do I feel pressured to play a role that feels inauthentic? Another question is, whose approval or validation am I seeking right now? External validation or attention from complete strangers? Respect from my peers? Or am I doing this purely because it's intrinsically rewarding for me? And then one more question can be, how much of my self-worth am I allowing to be dictated by things outside of my control, like revenue, follower count, or likes on a post? Practicing asking yourself questions like these helps you be more aware of how your thoughts can be draining your burnout battery. And the third most common source of burnout is our tasks. Your creator business is just that, a business. And every successful business has tasks that have to get done on a regular basis. So you can take an inventory of which tasks drain your burnout battery and how much each of them drains it. So I kind of use like 4 colors. So red is high energy drain, orange is moderate energy drain, yellow is mild energy drain, and green is a minimal energy drain, but it would add up if I did it too much. So for me, a lot of the administrative tasks are red. They're high energy drains for me, dealing with email, messing with taxes, all those sorts of things. Design is more orange. It's more of a moderate energy drain. So coming up with graphics, things like that. Calls is more of a yellow. It's a mild energy drain for me. And writing is usually green. I enjoy writing, but if I do it too much, it can become draining over time. I know people who are the opposite. They love administrative work and hate writing. It's all about knowing yourself, your susceptibility, and how much energy different things drain from you. Because the sooner you recognize these sources, the sooner you can take corrective action to avoid burnout from ever happening. But you can't avoid everything that causes burnout. Sometimes you have to do things that do drain your burnout battery, in which case we have to learn how to minimize burnout. So minimizing burnout comes down to offloading and restructuring as much as you can. I'm assuming you know how to do an Eisenhower matrix, but here's a twist on it to help you minimize burnout. Create 2 columns on a piece of paper. In column 1, write out things that are draining, are required, but aren't necessary for you to personally handle. Then in column 2, write out things that are draining, are required, and are necessary for you to personally handle. Everything in column 1, try to offload. Everything in column 2, try to restructure. This allows you to focus on the few things that truly matter instead of trying to do everything all at once, all by yourself. So I'll use me as an example with the tasks I told you earlier tend to drain my burnout battery. So with a lot of the administrative stuff, I offload most of that, finding ways to either automate certain tasks or outsource them to either technology or people allows me to avoid a major source of burnout. So like taxes, for example. I just hired an accountant, which took a ton of stress off my plate because it was taking me way too much time, way too much headache, and just stress of not knowing if I did it right. So now I occasionally meet with my accountant. He does pretty much everything, sends me a bill, I pay it, and now I know that the work was done correctly. And I freed up tons of hours of my own time, both my actual time and the mental burden it was taking me to try to sift through everything. So now that's a major source of burnout that is no longer a factor for me. I also suck at design, and I don't really enjoy doing design, so I offload as much of that as I can, either by working with other designers or creating templates that are really plug and play for me, really easy for me to do. Otherwise, I'll spend way too much time and frustration fiddling around, creating something that ultimately looks like a drunk 5-year-old made it in Microsoft Paint. And then when it comes to calls, well, I do need to do those. So I restructured how I do them. Doing a bunch of discovery calls for coaching clients is draining. Doing interviews with podcasts that are either amateurish or aren't aligned with what I'm trying to do, or doing coffee chats with people who just want to pick my brain, were all super draining, so I stopped doing them. Instead, now I do calls with people who inspire me, I guest on podcasts that are aligned and professional, and I leverage a lot of my free content and copywriting plus testimonials on my sales pages to convert people to my paid stuff. So I renegotiated how I did these things that still required me to do them, but I didn't have to do them in the way that I was. That was causing me to burn out. And with writing, I vary what I talk about to keep it fresh for me. Common guru advice is to say one thing 1,000 different ways. I tried it, I hated it, I don't want to do it. I'd rather do deep dives like this one, where I can go through nuance instead of spouting the same platitudes all day, every day. You don't have to do everything yourself. And you don't have to do everything the way you're supposed to do it. Too many creators either try to be one-person media companies and burn out, or they do the opposite. I see a lot of successful creators really struggle with this. They feel pressured to scale, so they hire people to help them. They read some business books that tell them they should fire themselves and offload a bunch of tasks to their team. That way they can work on the business instead of in the business. That all sounds great, but for a lot of creators, it's a trap. See, most creators love to create, but they slowly fire themselves from all the creative aspects of their business until all they have left is managing other creators. Creators who spend most of their time creating feel connected to their work. Creators who spend most of their time not creating don't, because you don't feel like a creator anymore. You feel like a manager, totally disconnected from the work you actually enjoy doing. You spend all day in meetings, coordinating projects, doing calls, reviewing contracts and edits, doing HR stuff like hiring and firing, and tons of other tasks that don't allow you to leverage where you are most valuable to your business. Actually creating fucking content that only you can create. This drains your burnout battery, and why so many creators who seem successful on the outside are miserable and burnt out. The point is to fire yourself from the stuff you don't enjoy doing so that you can focus on the things you do enjoy. But if you're a writer and you hire other people to write for you, or use AI to create scripts for you, or both, you've fired yourself from the main thing you love doing. But creating too much content constantly can also lead to burnout. See why it's critical to understand yourself and your specific sources of burnout? Identify your energy drains. Offload what you don't have to personally handle. Restructure what you do have to personally handle, and focus on positioning yourself to do the work that truly matters and that you enjoy. But sometimes you catch all of this too late, and you do actually burn out. So even though you knew your susceptibility, you tried to avoid it, and you tried to minimize it, sometimes you might just burn out. So here's how to recover from burnout after it happens. So how do you recover from burnout? Well, what do you do when a rechargeable battery is drained? You recharge it, But before you can recharge your burnout battery, you have to disconnect it from the things draining its energy. Then you have to create a conducive environment for it to recharge. Here's a 3-step process to properly recharge your burnout battery. The first step is to disconnect. Imagine if you took 2 weeks away from your business and your day-to-day routine to go live in a cabin, road trip across the country, or do some silent meditation retreat. Fully disconnected from all the stress and sources of burnout. How much clarity would you come back with? Well, you don't have to do all of that to disconnect, but you do need to find a way to mentally distance yourself from the sources of burnout. If your business is so fragile that if you took a week off, everything would burn to the ground, you fucked up a long time ago. Because either you intentionally take a few days or weeks off to deal with burnout, or burnout fully kicks in and everything goes up in smoke anyway. Trust me, chronic stress and burnout only compound if you don't deal with them. A few super simple things you can do right now. Turn off notifications. The people who truly matter already have your number if they need to contact you. Any email or social media notification is rarely so important you can't check it on your terms in a few hours. There's no need to be available 24/7 for anybody to tug at your attention. You can also just straight up ignore most messages. You don't owe everyone your time, energy, and attention. And you're under no obligation to try to defend or justify yourself. You can also take a few days off a platform that is draining you. Everybody will still be there when you get back, and the algorithm is going to do whatever it wants to do anyway. You can schedule posts in advance if you feel pressured to post daily. Because if you can disconnect for an extended period of time, you will come back with tons of clarity. Even setting aside an hour a day, a few hours a week, or an entire day per month to fully disconnect will set you up for success, because our minds need solitude for deep contemplation. Deep contemplation leads to profound clarity, and profound clarity allows you to focus on what truly matters, filter out what doesn't, and fully show up in the work that we do. And disconnecting from what drains you gives you the mental space to do the next part. The second step is to reflect. This is a crucial step if you want to fully recover and recharge from burnout. By disconnecting, you've created the space and solitude your mind needs for deep contemplation. Now you need to give it things to contemplate. Pull out a journal and put on your favorite meditation music and zoom out. Reflect on what actually matters in your life and your business. The life you want to live today, the impact you want to have on the world tomorrow, and the legacy you want to leave behind one day. I'll put some other questions down below so you can incorporate them into your own journaling practice, but here are a couple examples. If you were starting over with your creator business, what would you do differently? How can you better align your life and your business with your core value? Where are you getting in your own way? How are you overcomplicating things? What limiting beliefs are holding you back? And what is the obvious path forward that you've been overlooking? Again, I'll put a bunch more down below, so check those out. And once you contemplate these questions to give yourself a better perspective on your situation, you're ready to actually take the next step, which is to recharge. The third step when it comes to recovering from burnout is to actually recharge. And this is the step that most people skip to without disconnecting and reflecting, which is why a lot of times when people try to recover from burnout, it doesn't work, because it isn't just about recharging. If you're not disconnecting and reflecting, you're not going to get nearly as much out of the actual recharging phase. But you're watching this, so you have the advantage. So you've disconnected from the things draining you, you've created the mental space and deeply reflected on what matters, and come out with tons of clarity. Now you're ready to finally actually recharge your burnout battery. Which is a simple question. What activities energize you the most? Do those things. Because more than likely, when you feel burnout, you're probably not doing the things that are energizing you, which is just exacerbating the burnout. Because it's easy to get so caught up in being in reactive mode that we neglect ourselves and the things we know we need to do to feel good, to stay energized, to think clearly, and to show up fully in our work. The things we most need to do are the first things we neglect. Anytime I feel too busy to recharge, I remember a Zen quote. Meditate for an hour every day unless you are busy. In that case, meditate for 2 hours. Here are a couple of activities that work for me when I'm feeling burnt out. One, I love journaling. As a creator, our primary source of leverage is our ability to think. But stress, the chaos of life, and constant tugs at our attention from the outside world cloud our ability to think clearly. Anytime I feel like I've lost perspective and I'm getting too bogged down in bullshit, it's probably because I haven't journaled in a minute. Journaling without fail helps me put life back into perspective and break through mental plateaus. And journaling for me acts as a combination of reflection and recharging. Another activity is reading. All great writers are prolific readers. Reading allows you to expose yourself to new ideas. Anytime my content feels stale or I'm struggling to come up with something valuable, it's because I haven't been reading. I haven't been exposing myself to new ways of thinking about the world. But as soon as I pick up a book and I start on the first page, my mind instantly whirs into action, coming up with cool ideas to refine and share later. And it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction, just reading in general exposes you to new ways of thinking about the world. Catching up with friends is a huge activity I do to help me with burnout. Catching up with creator friends always energizes me, because not only do I get to connect with them and celebrate their wins, I also walk away with tons of inspiration for my own life and business. And a fourth activity I do that really helps with burnout is exercise. Exercise is something I do not because I enjoy it, but because not doing it makes me feel worse. I don't notice the effects of skipping a workout for a few days. But if I go a week without lifting, I start to get restless and I can feel my stress tolerance diminish, which makes me more susceptible to it and to burnout. So here's a super simple exercise for you to try. List out the activities that give you energy, rate how much energy each of those helps you recharge, then add these activities to your schedule, then actually do them. Because a depleted battery is nothing more than a toxic paperweight. You have to recharge it if you want to be effective. It might feel pointless to recharge. It might feel selfish to recharge. It might feel stupid to recharge, but it is critical to recharge. And now that you have appropriately recharged, you're ready for the final step, which is returning to work after burnout. All right, so how do you return to work after burnout? One thing that a lot of people who have fully burned out and return to work have in common is that they come back transformed, because the process of disconnecting, reflecting, and recharging from burnout actually recalibrates your burnout battery. Because remember, you've not only experienced how painful burnout can be, you've also gained tons of clarity on what causes burnout for you, what truly matters, how you want to show up in the work that you do, the impact you want to have, and the legacy you want to leave behind. There's a newfound intentionality behind your actions and how you approach work now. You have a higher capacity for work, more energy, and a higher output. But all that recalibration comes at a cost. Your burnout battery is incompatible with a lot of the things you used to do. Because you know that if you want to be the most effective in your life and business, you have to be incompatible with many of the old things that drained your previous battery. So now you're super selective with what you connect your burnout battery to. This allows you to show up fully in the work that truly matters. You default to no, so that you can say yes to the few things that actually matter. You set healthy boundaries, so you stop overcommitting yourself. You stop taking on projects that don't align with your own mission. And you stop letting the chaos of life pull you away from the things you love doing. And you focus on doing work that is intrinsically rewarding for you, instead of seeking external validation. You appreciate attention and accolades when they happen, but you show up because your work has a deeper existential significance to you, not because your latest post gets 3% more likes than the last one. Burnout can be a blessing if you use it as a catalyst to recalibrate and return to work on your terms. Because ultimately, you can get showered in positive feedback, accolades, and attention and still burn out. You can have multiple 6 or 7 figures in revenue and followers and still burn out. You can be intelligent, disciplined, and ambitious and still burn out. No one is immune to burnout. So learning to deal with burnout, anticipating it, avoiding it, minimizing it, recovering from it, and recalibrating after it is critical if you want to keep showing up and doing the work that only you can do as a creator. I hope this video was helpful for you, and I hope it can be a resource you come back to anytime you need it. Yes, there's a lot more nuance when it comes to burnout, so if you have questions about your specific type of burnout, please comment below, and I'll see if I can help. But this is a good foundational video when it comes to understanding burnout, specifically for creators. Take care of your burnout battery. It's the only one you've got. And a couple bonus tips when it comes to burnout that are just a little more practical. One, build your own stuff. Again, a common complaint I hear from a lot of creators is dealing with brands or ad revenue, things like that. So like with brand deals, a lot of times there's a pressure to perform. So I have to do X video for Y brand on Z date. There's nothing wrong with sponsorships, but beware if it's depleting your battery. If you have your own products, you can literally just sponsor your own stuff. Then you don't feel the same pressure for that ad to perform or to hit a specific deadline. You maintain full control over how you advertise it, and you don't have to go back and forth with some brand's team to finalize the project. Another one is diversify your income. If you have one primary source of income and that starts to dry up, you'll start to panic and sacrifice too much to get it back. A gilded cage, no matter how ornate, is still a cage. Coaching, courses, affiliate revenue, workshops, physical goods, whatever. Try to have at least 2, but preferably more, because a little diversification goes a long way for your peace of mind as a creator. Another is be willing to leave money on the table. Whoever has walkaway power wins. Not every dollar is worth the same if it comes with a tenfold increase in stress. So knowing your value, respecting yourself, and setting those boundaries of, hey, if you want to work with me, these are the rules. If you can't abide by them, cool, I'm fine to walk away. That will give you an insane amount of leverage to say yes to the few things that matter, rather than saying yes to anything. Another is find a community. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Creators are an odd bunch. We spend all day creating for a massive audience, but we actually create it by ourselves, alone. We connect with our audience through our content, but we spend most of our day disconnected and alone. It's isolating. Finding the right group of supported peers goes a long way to dealing with burnout. And it doesn't have to be like an official membership community you pay dues for, but just having some group of trusted supportive peers is huge. And then the last bonus tip is give yourself permission to evolve. If you're afraid to evolve because your audience might leave, then as they leave, you'll attract others. Your audience isn't a homogeneous thing. It's a group of individuals who initially followed you because they resonated with you. Content is a commodity, but your personality, your reputation, your story, your experiences, your passion, these are the things that truly attract the right people to you. You're allowed to evolve. Your content is allowed to evolve because your audience will also evolve. If you want more deep dives into psychology, online business, and content creation, consider checking out the Creator Alchemy newsletter. New issues go out each week, and it's completely free to join. Check out the link in the description for more. Until next time, take it easy.